Welcome back to Hope Unscripted, a podcast of Hope Cancer Resources. I'm your co-host, Jamie Dietrich, and with me,
Brittany Harmon.
And we're back for episode 2, where we're talking about all things nutrition, oncology related with Miss Erin Moore. We're very excited to have her back and that she came back.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
So our last episode, we talked a lot about the different myths and things like that, and a lot about what you do and the patients that you see. Sometimes once patients come to you, if they're still eating food at that time, when their taste starts to change, what do they tell you during that time? Because I've heard metallic, taste like there's blood in my mouth, things like that.
Oh gosh, we hear all sorts of things. It really depends on if the side effect is from radiation or from one of their medications or chemo. And what I hear a lot of is everything tastes like cardboard.
Yeah. Just terrible.
Which is something that I've heard over and over, and I thought, that's interesting. What's cardboard taste like? Sometimes people just say it doesn't taste right, like it should, or I can taste it, but only for a few seconds, and then it goes away.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's an interesting one. I know we've had a patient come on and tell us, like, there's some of her favorite foods, she shouldn't eat them anymore because it's not the same that it used to be. And so that's been years after, too. So those side effects can still remain. That's crazy.
Yeah. There's a really interesting website that I was directed to called Tasting, Tasting Notes. And it was developed by a chef who had head and neck cancer. Oh. And what better person to help people with taste than someone who is in the culinary field and been through it themselves. And so there's recipes and tips and things on that website. And there's a flavor that they speak of. And there's now a seasoning that you can buy over the counter called umami. UMAMI.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, and so in general, we are taught that taste is sweet, salty, bitter, or sour, and those are the tastes. And if there's too much of one, we can kind of cut it with another one. If things are too, sour, we can cut it with adding sweet, or vice versa. If things are too metallic, don't eat off of metal silverware. Yeah. Canned foods can make that worse, etc. But the umami is kind of like the fifth flavor, or the fifth taste bud. And so they recommend that. And then I've seen some umami flavored seasonings at different grocery stores, and have bought some recently to take home and try, just so that I can see what they're like and what kind of flavor. But they're not all just a generic one. Some of them are more mushroom flavored or lean one way or the other. But I will recommend that site to patients that are struggling. But a lot of the patients that I deal with, especially the head and neck cancer patients who have lost their taste during radiation treatment, for example, we know that they're going to recover their taste as they begin healing from treatment after treatment is finished. And so a lot of times it's just giving it time and then helping them work through what are the major taste obstacles right now, just to make it palatable so that they can eat and drink what they need to. But it's very interesting because everybody has different preferences. A lot of times patients will come in and maybe they were a lifelong smoker, so they already had diminished taste to begin with. Then we have COVID thrown in the mix. Some people had COVID, lost their sense of taste, never got it back.
Oh.
So it's not an issue for them.
Yeah. That would be awful. My husband lost his sense of smell, and he had it. Yeah. And it was like 6 months later. And it was actually kind of handy at my house because I could light my candles and he couldn't say anything. And then all of a sudden he smelled it one day and I was like, well, that's bad.
That's the one thing I wish I knew the key to is it a certain nerve? What is it that, triggers the loss of taste, and when the taste comes back, or if it's altered?
Yeah.
I wish I could have that secret key to be able to
tell people. Yeah.
I imagine that would just be so frustrating. Like, to not taste ice cream, or like whatever your favorite food. For me, that's queso. It's veggie stuff. But that would be so hard and frustrating. Yeah. So something I was thinking about as you were talking about that, we have a lot of different patients come in to see the care closet, and we talked about that a little in the last episode. We try to keep stock nutrition shakes. And so I've seen chocolate in there and I've seen vanilla in there. And I noticed that we started stocking vanilla a lot more. And so I asked, why are we doing vanilla? And so what I was told is that patients actually ask for the vanilla because they can't handle the chocolate taste, because their taste buds are off or different. But several patients have mentioned that they can really only stomach the vanilla, and they need to get, obviously they need to get nutrition and protein in their body. Have you heard about anything like that, or any thoughts on that?
I have. In general, chocolate is one that you either prefer it or you don't, but it does tend to be the favorite or the most common flavor. The vanilla, if a patient doesn't care for it, I always say, vanilla can become vanilla caramel. It can become butterscotch. It can become
maybe that's part of
orange cream. You could add strawberry syrup to it and make it the strawberry flavor if we don't have it, or add chocolate syrup, make it the chocolate flavor. I feel like it's the most versatile, but it's also a little more mild, and that may be why they tend to go for that one.
I could see chocolate too, and especially chocolate protein drinks. I love a protein drink in the morning too. That's my go-to. But some of the chocolate ones just aren't as good as some of the others too.
Yeah,
that could be.
And there's a lot of people out there that are just people who don't like chocolate, or they love chocolate. But I don't hear as often people who, I love vanilla, but I don't like vanilla. I don't hear as much of that. So I will say too, the vanilla is more versatile for patients who just don't like the taste or have a weird aftertaste with protein or nutrition shakes. And so that one's an easy one to throw into a milkshake or a smoothie and use it as a base, blend it with fruit, change up the flavor profile that way as well.
Interesting.
So do you help navigate, I guess, some of the side effects with nutrition, as far as nausea, mouth sores are always a big one we hear about pretty frequently, the dry mouth, thick saliva, like I've heard that one too.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
Those are things we talk about every week throughout treatment and post-treatment. With some populations or some cancer diagnoses and treatments more than others, but dry mouth feeds into the taste thing. Our saliva has enzymes, the same type of enzymes that our pancreas secretes to help break down and digest fat and sugar. We have what's called salivary amylase and salivary lipase, and those break down carbohydrate and fat respectively. And so part of not being able to taste is lack of saliva and lack of enzymes to break down that piece of cheese or that chip that has a lot of flavor normally, but not right now. So, in certain instances, we know that the saliva will come back to some degree or improve after treatment. And until then, we have to use other strategies like avoiding dry foods or adding moisture to them. So more tender meats instead of the dried meats, or using condiments and sauces, gravies, dips, things like that, taking frequent sips of liquids because you don't have the saliva that's usually there to help chew and emulsify your food. And none of us think about that on a regular basis. It just comes naturally until you're in this scenario and you realize, oh, I don't have that, and that's why.
Well, and I do think about, sometimes you wake up with cotton mouth, your mouth is so dry and it hurts almost to try to get you to sit back in there. And if you're dealing with that on a daily basis, I know what that tastes like in my mouth. I can't imagine having to taste that every day.
Yeah, and we have, you can always drink lots of sips of water and ice chips and things, but that's very, very temporary. And it does kind of help with dehydration during treatment, which is another issue. But we have other things that we often use. There's dry mouth gels, mouth rinses, sprays that you can keep in your pocket or by your nightstand. There's lozenges. A lot of those have something called xylitol, which is a artificial or a sugar alcohol, and that helps with a moisture layer. Even using humidifiers at night so that the air you breathe in through your mouth or nose has more moisture. Or a lot of patients who already use a CPAP, telling them to add the humidifier so that their mouth isn't so dry in the morning. And then we have little rinses that we give recipes for that has baking soda and salt. They use those a lot, and that helps with the dry mouth. It also helps with the icky taste to some degree. and it helps break up that thick saliva. So
Does chewing gum, would that be something that would be helpful or hurtful because you already have a lack of saliva words that?
it depends. Some of my patients chew it and they feel like it helps. The issue is, if your saliva glands just don't have saliva in them, then any sort of stimulation like gum or a sour candy or a hard candy just may not work during that time.
It's so interesting how every case, every patient, every cancer is just so different. And it really is. Like throughout all these conversations in episode 1, I just keep thinking like there's not a single repetitive, it feel like situation. Like everything is so different. And that has to, 1, keep your job very interesting, and 2, make your job very difficult. So, it's...
Yeah, oftentimes you can head into a room and know the general picture, diagnosis, treatment, and have a few other patients who are kind of in that same scenario and think, okay, this is what I think I'm going to be dealing with. It's, week 4 of radiation and, after cycle 4 of chemo. And then you walk in and you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. Or you're like, so you're not having any of this. Like, wow, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
I was expecting to have to really help you troubleshoot, but, we'll take it that you're not having that. So
interesting. So in episode 1, we talked a little bit about supplements and kind of how you handle that. Are there ever any supplements that you do recommend? And if so, what are those and when would you recommend them?
So supplements are a little bit tricky because it's kind of a broad term. So we may say oral nutrition supplement, meaning a shake, or we may say supplement meaning a vitamin, or it could mean an herbal supplement. So in general, the ones that would typically be recommended are vitamin D. It plays a role in our immune system and our ability to, fight things similar to cancer, illness, indirectly helps with that. And a lot of people are just vitamin D deficient. And we've learned over the years that what we thought was a normal range is not going to cut it. And so, we want levels to be in a more therapeutic range, especially if you're a cancer patient. And so if those levels are low when we check them, then yes, that's something we would recommend a supplement. Same with B12 or iron or any of those like folate. And so I work with the medical oncologist to, monitor those levels and make sure patients are taking, their recommended supplements if they have a deficiency or if we're trying to prevent a deficiency because they're borderline. When it comes to herbal supplements, there's a really good database that I use from Memorial Sloan Kettering. It's called About Herbs. And so they've taken all of the science and literature that's out there that's available on certain herbs or plants, and it's there for consumers or the patient, and it's also there for providers. And it takes you through what is it, where does it come from, like what type of plant or what's the extract. Turmeric is an example. And the active compound in turmeric is curcumin. So taking a turmeric supplement may not be the same if you get one and you get one, because yours just may have the curcumin in it, and yours may have full-on turmeric, and you may not absorb it as well. Or yours may be one that irritates your GI tract, depending on the form it's in. But this database helps people make more of an informed decision. It helps us as providers know, are there any potential interactions? Does it interact with drug pathways? Does it cause any side effects? Does it make labs look weird? Like, does it make it look like your liver is inflamed when it's not? So we try to be mindful of that. And if a patient really wants to take it, then we educate them on what's known, but also herbs, vitamins, any of those, none of them are regulated, whether by the FDA or anybody else. Some of them do hire a third-party company to sort of
third-party testing.
Yeah, go
I go
through
in the TikTok rabbit hole and I'll see these.
Yeah, some of them you can trust because they're regulated and heavily, and they test them to show you, and their data is available that this pill and this pill have exactly what they say. But a lot of times over the years they've done studies and they find that one pill may have 0 of the ingredient it said, one may have 5 times that, and that could be really harmful to somebody. So another thing is it can be contaminated with mold or bacteria or fungus. You don't know where it was stored, where it came from, how it was shipped, the environment. So you really run that risk, especially when you're immune compromised. And so it really has to be something that you're dead set on, that you really think would be beneficial, or that you've always taken and you notice you don't do as well without. And then you just have to weigh the risk versus benefit.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the big ones that's huge hype this past year and now currently is electrolytes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are everywhere.
Yeah, I'm a big electrolyte drinker.
Me too.
Yeah.
All day. I mean, well, not all day, but I mean, every day I have.
Probably drink more than I should, let's be honest. Like,
This is true. Yeah. Like I can't even drink plain water anymore.
Yeah.
I know that's bad.
Electrolytes have become a trend, and for multiple reasons. It used to be that you just had your Gatorade, Powerade, and then when you're sick, you might grab some Pedialyte. And then there's a couple that are marketed towards cancer patients that aren't pediatric products. But in recent years, it's been marketed for people who are active, for people who feel tired, for people who feel like their diet isn't very complete. And then also we've had a slew of people with diagnoses like POTS, which is a cardiac condition where they require a lot more fluid and more electrolytes to help their condition. And so there's so many out there. Myself, I was looking the other day at an electrolyte supplement that came from the field house where my husband coaches. And I thought, oh, this looks like a good one. There's some that have sugar. There's some that are sugar-free. And I thought, oh, well, I don't really care for this flavor. I'm going to see what else is out there, when I was just looking for online grocery shopping at, Walmart, Target, wherever. And then I realized, oh, this one doesn't have any magnesium, and this one does. Or this one has zinc, or this one has a bunch of niacin, which is a B vitamin, but it was well over 100% of the daily needs. And it can cause something called flushing. You feel like you're having a hot flash.
So you try
when you take too much of it. And so I was like, I definitely don't want that. It's 100 degrees outside. Yeah. So I realized quickly that there's so many out there, it's hard to keep up with. And they all have different electrolyte profiles. But, in general, we're taught less sodium, more potassium. So less processed foods, don't add salt to your food, don't cook with a lot of sodium, use herbs and spices, eat more fruits and vegetables, because potassium is sort of a counterbalance in some ways to sodium. Like Americans get way too much sodium and not enough potassium. And then you throw these electrolytes in the mix and they all have sodium in them and they all have different amounts. And I mean, it gets really complex because from a medical nutrition standpoint, I've worked with patients who have absorptive disorders. Maybe they're missing a large portion of their intestine and they don't absorb fluid like they should, or electrolytes. And so we normally give them something that is a specific ratio and concentration of sugar, sodium, potassium, so that it'll be optimally absorbed. And just plain old Gatorade doesn't cut it. That's like a watered down version of what we need. But then from day to day, if you're just trying to add in extra electrolytes, you're just grabbing a packet. It could have any number of those.
Yeah, I know what the ones we have at home right now, they're called fire salt. They're great. We love them. They taste delicious.
Yeah.
It says sodium, magnesium, potassium right on the thick. So I know at least what I'm getting, but I'm like, am I drinking too many of these? Like, is there a point of expensive urine, or could it cause damage?
Yeah. And then there's populations that have heart disease and they're very mindful that too much potassium can be almost lethal to them.
Yeah.
Or that if they have kidney disease, they know that they're limited on sodium and potassium, so they stay away from those electrolyte drinks completely. So it's very interesting now that it's become more mainstream and not just in sports or certain conditions, to see all the different varieties out there. But I find them helpful to some of my patients who lose a lot of electrolytes from having a lot of GI losses. So whether it be diarrhea or they have a drain coming from their GI tract or their biliary tract, we know those fluids are concentrated in certain electrolytes, and that helps steer me to, okay, based on how much they're putting out, what their labs look like, how can I help, replace that? One of the interesting things that has been handy is patients who need potassium replacement for whatever reason, whether it's their chemo depletes their potassium, or they're on a drug that depletes it, or they're just losing a lot. The potassium replacement pills, they're so big. And and even patients who don't have much difficulty with swallowing are just like, I can't take them.
Yeah.
And so we found ways to use electrolyte drinks and replacements to get the same dose of potassium safely and without choking.
So, talked about all the different brands and some of the labels and stuff that you read. Is there one, if you're comfortable answering, that you recommend, or a brand that you found that you're just like, oh, like this one, I really like what's in it, or maybe it's a personal preference?
Yeah, I think mostly it comes down to personal preference and also like availability and cost. Some of them can be very expensive.
Yeah.
I've tried and true always had access to Pedialyte just because, having a hospital formulary and that being available even for adults. And it's got a pretty mainstream profile as far as electrolytes. The other ones, like I said, just kind of go off in various directions. So I'm just most familiar with that one. There's Enterade, which is one that is recommended or made for adults, and a lot of cancer patients will use. But really, I think it's just personal preference.
Yeah.
And I really don't recommend one unless I know what's in it and I know the patient's history and all of that.
Well, on the Pedialyte, they make packets now too.
Mhm.
I know when my son has been sick.
I didn't know that.
They do. They started doing it, I don't know, probably about a year ago when the
Mhm.
trend probably took off. Because I know when my little boy was sick once, and they tell you just pump him full of some Pedialyte. But he hated the bottle. He would not drink it whatsoever. And I found those packets, and it makes it a lot.
The packets are helpful too because patients who are fed through a tube, they have to get water through their tube too. And so sometimes we can just give, the Pedialyte as part of their electrolytes through the tube if it's indicated, so.
Oh, cool. You're just a wealth of knowledge. And just so you know, I'm over here writing
I'm so
notes as you're
fascinating.
talking.
Yes.
So 2 other supplements I want to mention real quick. One is mushrooms. I hear a lot about turkey tail and cancer prevention, and then zinc being another boosting immunity. And I just wanted to get you to talk about those 2 real quick, and then we'll move on.
Yeah. Mushrooms have also become more common in the last several years. More so through mushroom blends. People are putting them in their coffee and doing all sorts of fun things with coffee or their morning drinks and mushroom powders and things.
I've seen so many. That's why I have to ask.
Again, there's so many different mushroom varieties, and then there's so many ways to process them. And then you hear growing up, mushrooms are dangerous if they didn't come from the grocery store. You don't know where they're from. They can make you hallucinate. But no, there's different blends. There's different purported benefits. I mean, they're a staple in a lot of cooking, but in the powder form or a supplement form, it's really hard to say, like I said, because it's not regulated. Again, I go to that database and see what's available.
Yeah.
And if I don't know enough, I usually advise against it, at least, when someone's going through treatment or when they're sick. Or unless they can find more information to review.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are certain mushrooms specifically, like the turkey tail, that some people say, it has protective effects from liver disease or helps with certain cancers. And there may be some studies that showed that, but are they controlled trials? Are they peer reviewed? I mean,
are they human trials?
Exactly. We just, and when you look into it, most of the time, no.
Yeah.
If something were to become evidence-based, of course, it would have all of that to back it, and it would be something recommended by the larger entities,
Yeah.
I got a crunchy friend. She knows who she is. I know she's probably going to listen to this. She used to make that coffee or the mushroom coffee in the morning, and the smell of it. How you drink
Does it have it? I haven't smelled.
It is an interesting smell. So more power to you.
Yeah.
You can chuck it down, but she loves it, and she says it helps her body every day. I was like, yeah, that's for you, not for me.
I've seen so much I bring it up because of like Instagram and Facebook and like all the different social media platforms. It feels like it's everywhere right now. And so I really appreciate your
Constantly in your face.
Smushed. And it's like what, $1 billion market on supplements. And so people people sometimes are grasping for hope. And it was marketed a certain way. It's so quick and easy to be like, yep, order, I'll try it. $30.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
And now that we have algorithms and we have AI, you search a certain thing and it could be unrelated, and then it starts putting things in your feed or in front of you, and your ads start changing, or you start seeing testimonials or posts from people, and it kind of puts you on the train, whether you were looking for it or not.
The rabbit hole is like, I'm right there. Now all of our phones are going to be supplements.
And then when it comes to supplements like zinc, for example, a lot of patients will say, I take zinc when it's cold and flu season because I want to help boost my immune system. Or I take it for XYZ to prevent things. Zinc is it's a mineral, and it's one of those that in general is not harmful, but when taken in excess, can compete with other minerals. So another mineral that we don't think about that we need, but in very small amounts, is copper. And so too much zinc can lead to a copper deficiency because they compete for absorption. And no one's thinking about, I have a copper deficiency.
Well, no, because you don't hear about it.
Outside of hematology, oncology, or maybe functional medicine, you're not going to see someone even looking for that. But it can happen. And so that's one thing I say, it's okay to take. It's probably not going to hurt you if you take a little bit over the daily limit, because we don't really know. But I would take breaks from it because you want to make sure that you're not, becoming deficient in copper, because that can lead to other anemias and things. So.
Well, we just have a couple of minutes here left. And so I just want to turn it over to you. You've been such a wealth of knowledge. I mean, literally been writing notes.
Keep going forever,
But with, 2 minutes left, is there anything that you would share just with our listeners out there that is just something, special from you and your expertise? Like you've blown me away today. So I'm just going to turn this over to you.
Yeah, I would just say that nutrition is very complex. It's not a one size fits all. And when you have a cancer diagnosis, or you've beat cancer or in survivorship, or you're trying to prevent cancer, you really can't put all of the weight or any weight into a decision that you made regarding food or nutrition. You can't beat yourself up and say that because I did this, it might have led to this, because I didn't eat all organic, or I didn't, avoid hot dogs or something. It could be anything. You really can't beat yourself up. And then there's nothing that you can do that is going to make your cancer worse or kill it or make it go away as far as food is concerned, for the most part. And so not to put too much weight in that and try to beat yourself up and control what you're eating and drinking. You should do what feels right for your body, what's going to nourish your body, what sounds good to you, what's affordable to you.
That's right now.
And there is so much misinformation, but there's also so much good information out there. So, sites like the American Cancer Society, and a lot of the larger cancer institutions. And then there are different support groups and sites for specific cancers like head and neck cancer, pancreatic cancer, breast cancer. Those are wonderful resources that have support groups and forums where you can share experiences and get information from people who have been there, done that. And so I highly recommend those versus just searching the web in general or scrolling and hearing from complete strangers, unless they're just giving their personal experience. It can lead to a lot of harm and misinformation
and confusion.
And it can be scary. Yeah. So
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for not one, but 2 episodes this month, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And thank you, listeners and watchers, for being out there. We hope you took something away from today's episode. And Brittany, anything that you want to add?
We just appreciate Erin and everything Highlands does. And if you guys have any questions, you can reach us. Visit our website, hopecancerresources.org. We can do what we can with our wellness specialist, Miss Hannah. She knows some about the nutrition education too, and connect with everybody that we need to. So, all right.
thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.